Thank you, IT. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Council's meeting today, the 26th of November 2020. Apologies for the brief delay in starting the meeting. My name is Councillor Bill Lewis, Mayor of Rugby, and I am the chairman of this meeting. The meeting is being web streamed to the public and is being attended by members through Microsoft Teams. Before we begin working through the agenda, I will go through some rules on procedure. The web streaming of this meeting is being monitored by IT services. If at any point there are any streaming issues, then I will be informed and the meeting will be adjourned until such time that the technological issues can be resolved. If during the course of the meeting any member of the council is having connection issues, then there will be a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes to determine whether the connection issues can be resolved. If following the adjournment, the connection issues cannot be resolved, then providing the meeting remains quorate, it will continue. It will be deemed that the member with connection issues has left the meeting and will no longer be able to participate. For all attendees, please could you switch off your microphones and cameras now. For members, your microphones and cameras should be switched off unless you're speaking. If you wish to speak during the meeting, please use the raise hand function and wait for me to ask you to speak. The voting during virtual meetings will normally use the raise hand function. I will call on the Democratic Services Officer to confirm the vote at each stage. Members should lower their hands once that's been done. Are there any questions before we move into the formal agenda? No questions. I will now ask our Democratic Services Officer to confirm the attendees at this meeting. This will be for members only. When your name is called out, please confirm your attendance by saying present. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Mrs. Alanak.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Avarro.
Present.
Councillor Byrne.
Present.
Councillor Brader.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Bragg.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Brown.
Present.
Councillor Cade.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Crane.
Present.
Councillor Cranham.
Present.
Councillor Douglas.
Present.
Councillor Miss Dumbleton.
Present.
Councillor Eccleston.
Present.
Councillor Ellis.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Garcia.
Present.
Councillor Gillias.
Present.
Councillor Lee Hunt.
Present.
Councillor Keeling.
Present.
Councillor Miss Lawrence.
Present.
Councillor Lewis.
Present.
Councillor Lowe.
Present.
Councillor Mahoney.
Present.
Councillor McQueen.
Present.
Councillor Mistry.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. New.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. O'Rourke.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Parker.
Present.
Councillor Picker.
Present.
Councillor Poole.
Present.
Councillor Ms. Robbins.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Roberts.
Present.
Councillor Howard Roberts.
Present.
Councillor Jerry Roodhouse.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Roodhouse.
Present.
Councillor Sanderson.
Present.
Councillor Shearer. I can see Councillor Shearer is actually on the list of participants. I just wonder if he's having trouble with his microphone.
Was on, Claire, but I think he may have dropped off. I was talking to him earlier.
I can see him on the list of participants.
It's got an iPad today, so it's struggling with the mouse or whatever. It's
Okay, I'll continue with the list.
Okay.
Councillor
I'll
Miss
give him a call. Yeah, okay.
Councillor Mrs Simpson Vince,
Present.
Councillor Srivastava,
Present.
Councillor Stokes.
I'm present. James Shearer here now.
Thank you, Councillor Shearer. Councillor Stokes,
Present.
Councillor Mrs Timms.
Present.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So that's 40 councillors present this evening.
4-0. Thank you very much. We'll now move into the formal agenda. We'll start off with item 1, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies, Executive Director?
Mr Mayor, I have apologies from councillors Butlin and Pacey Day.
Thank you very much. Move on to item 2, to approve the minutes of the meeting of council held on the 24th of September 2020. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 24th of September 2020 be approved and adopted. Who will second the motion?
I will, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Those in favour, please show using the raise hand function. For each vote coming up, please keep your hands raised until I ask you to lower them. Thank you.
So I've got 36 councillors that have voted in favour, Mr Mayor. Sorry, you've got 38 now.
Can you please raise your hands if you're in favour?
So that's 39 in favour, Mr Mayor.
Okay, would you lower your hands then, please? Is that clear now, Claire?
Yes, that's clear, Mr Mayor. I think we may have lost Councillor Kieran Brown, which is why we only had 39 votes.
Right. Well, I'll go ahead and ask if there are any against, just in case, but those against, please show using the raise hand function.
There are none, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. The motion is carried. Item 3, declarations of interest. Can I remind members that when they declare interests, they must also declare the general nature of that interest? Are there any declarations under non-pecuniary interest as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for councillors? Have you got any hands, Claire?
So there's no hands raised, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Under item 3B, pecuniary interest as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for councillors.
No hands raised, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. And item 3C, notice under section 106, Local Government Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax.
No hands raised, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Claire. We'll move on to item 4, the Mayor's announcements. The 2 items that I wanted to speak about this evening. First one is for everyone across the nation, Remembrance Sunday and Armistice Day this year were very different from those held in previous years. Rugby was no exception. Restrictions on the size of gatherings and the social distancing requirements meant that the usual service and march past could not be held. Instead, a small number of us were able to gather for a brief Remembrance Sunday ceremony at the Memorial Gates. The service was led by the Reverend Canon Edmund Newey, Rector of St Andrews, our civic church. Also there were a flag bearer, a bugler, the Armed Forces champion, and the council's executive director. In addition, 3 of us laid wreaths representing the counties of Warwickshire, the citizens of Rugby, and the constituency of Rugby. The ceremony was live streamed on the council website, and our 2 local newspapers published excellent photographs recording the event. Later, after the ceremony had finished, members of the public and representatives of various organisations were very pleased to have an opportunity to lay wreaths of their own. They went individually or in small groups during the afternoon, being careful to obey the prevailing lockdown requirements. There was no formal civic or council attendance at Caldecott Park for the sounding of the Maroons at 11 AM on the 11th of November, Armistice Day. However, I saw a number of members of the public standing safely outside the park fence to witness the event and to observe the national 2-minute silence. The Executive Director has already thanked all those council staff and workmen who made these 2 events possible, and I echo her thanks to them. I also thank the public for heeding the council's request not to attend the Memorial Gates as a large crowd. Thanks to all the organisations that usually attend on Remembrance Sunday, but were not able to do so this year, for their cooperation and patience in these very unusual times. We look forward to next year's Remembrance Sunday and Armistice Day, when hopefully we will be back to normal and able to honour in the usual way all those who have lost their lives or have been affected by war over the years. The second item is many of us will have seen the government's announcement that Rugby will be under Tier 3 restrictions at the end of lockdown on the 2nd of December. This will be unwelcome news for many people, and especially for hospitality businesses that will need to remain closed. The council is providing a range of support grants to help these businesses, and I hope this will help them through this difficult time. We all long for a time when we can meet face to face and go back to our old routines. It's quite clear that this won't happen until we are able to get the number of infections down. To do that, we must follow the rules. Most importantly, we must keep washing our hands, wearing a face covering, and keep our distance. It is our duty as responsible citizens to do everything we can to get the rate of infection down and protect our more vulnerable residents. I look forward to giving a mayor's announcement that doesn't mention COVID-19 in the meantime. I again thank all our officers for the immense work that they're doing, and all my fellow councillors for supporting role they continue to play. Thank you. We move on to item 5, which is questions pursuant to Standing Order 10. Are there any questions, Executive Director?
Mr. Mayor, we have 2 questions this evening. Question A is from Councillor Sanderson to the Corporate Resources Portfolio Holder, Councillor Ms Robbins. COVID has highlighted the importance of websites and using social media and the need for extra communication in these times. Could the portfolio holder confirm that all reports that require consultation are placed on the RBC website and linked to social media? And I can confirm, Mr. Mayor, that the answer to that question is on our website.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Sanderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, my supplementary question is,
In terms of community engagements, will the portfolio holder be working with the Overview and Scrutiny Management Group when they undertake a review of community engagement?
Yes, Mr Mayor, should I answer?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, thank you, Councillor Sanderson, and thank you for your question. Very comprehensive, and I think you've got a very comprehensive answer there. And of course, we will work with all members of the council, scrutiny and officers, to ensure that our messages get across to everybody within the borough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have question B?
Yes, Mr Mayor, and this is from Councillor Douglas, who asks the Leader of the Council, Councillor Lowe. Black History Month took place in October and was founded to recognise the contributions that people of African and Caribbean backgrounds have made to the UK over many generations. Can the Leader outline what Rugby Borough Council did to mark Black History Month? And I can confirm, Mr Mayor, that the answer has been published on our website.
Yeah, it looks quite comprehensive. Councillor Douglas, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, please. Good evening. I thank the Leader for his answer. I'm very pleased to see local schools involved. I welcome the future plans, but ask how will the council improve the reach of this activity, as well as publicise and engage with communities who perhaps are not directly part of the Rugby Black Lives Matter group. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe, you wish to reply?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, look, as you've seen from the answer, Councillor Douglas, this is a matter that this council takes extremely seriously, and rightly so. It is important to all of our residents across all of our communities. This council will very happily engage with and enter into discussions with anybody who wishes to discuss this or any other matter with us, and look forward to receiving responses from anybody who wishes to engage with us on this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move on then to item 6A. This is to receive the report of Cabinet dated the 9th of November 2020. In submitting the report of Cabinet, I shall call each paragraph number and heading. If members wish to raise questions or to comment, would they please indicate they wish to do so by using the raise hand function when I call the item. I will be calling the paragraphs according to the portfolios under which they fall. Report of Cabinet, 9th of November 2020. Councillor Ms Robbins, will you move the confirmation and adoption of item 1 of the report of Cabinet of the 9th of November 2020?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I so move.
Thank you. Paragraph 1, Finance and Performance Monitoring 2020-21, Quarter 2. Do you wish to present that report, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it speaks for itself. It went through Cabinet, and I think there's nothing further I need to add. Thank you very much.
Okay. Are there any speakers?
Mr Mayor, Councillor Roodhouse has his hand raised.
For some reason, my machine isn't showing who the raised hands. So thank you for letting me know. Yes, Councillor Roodhouse.
I'll remind you of that then, Bill. The report, as the portfolio holder will remember, highlights about HR and the particular red indicators around sickness and grievances. And it was promised that I'd be having a briefing, a paper would be circulated. I'm still waiting for that paper. Could the portfolio holder tell me when that would be coming through?
I was under the impression that had already happened, Councillor Roodhouse. I will chase it up and ensure you get it forthwith.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other speakers?
No, Mr Mayor, no other hands are raised.
Thank you. Well, in that case, I'll now submit for confirmation and adoption the whole of the report. Those in favour, please show using the raise hands function.
So 34 councillors in favour.
34.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I've got 37 now.
Right, I think we've allowed enough time. Would you please lower your hands? Those against, please show using the raised hands function.
That's one hand against, Mr Mayor.
38, so we're still too short. All right, please lower your hands. We're short of the 40, so those who wish to abstain, please show using the raise hand function.
There are none, Mr Mayor.
Okay, in that case, the motion is carried. Move on to item B, 6B. To receive the report of Licensing and Safety Committee dated the 13th of October 2020. Councillor Cade, will you move the confirmation and adoption of item 1 of the report of Licensing and Safety Committee of the 13th of October 2020?
Mr Mayor, I so move and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Paragraph 1, Hackney Carriage and Public Hire Licensing Policy. Do you wish to introduce that, Councillor Cade?
Yes, this policy has been a long time in coming. It spent the best part of a year going through legal and dealing with people's observations and requests. And I think it's an excellent piece of work, having come to the end of the year's time it's taken. And I recommend it. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any speakers?
There are no hands raised, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. So presumably you don't wish to say anything further, Councillor Cade?
No, I see no need. I think it's an excellent report and hopefully everyone's for it.
Right. I'll now submit for confirmation and adoption the whole of the report. Those in favour, please show using the raise hands function.
That's 38-4, Mr Mayor.
38-4. All right, please lower your hand. Right, those against, please show using the raise hands function.
There are none, Mr Mayor.
Well, in that case, those who wish to abstain, please show using the raised hand function.
There are none, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. In that case, the motion is carried. We move on to item 7, to receive and consider the reports of officers. The next item is to receive the report of the Executive Director set out at item 7A of the agenda. The report concerns the proposed change to the membership of Licensing and Safety Committee for the remainder of the current municipal year. Councillor Lowe, will you, as leader of the council, move the report of the Executive Director?
Mr. Mayor, I so move.
Who will second the motion?
Mr. Mayor, I will second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you wish to put the report, Councillor Lowe?
The only thing I wish to say, Mr. Mayor, is to thank Councillor Lee Hunt for her service on the committee and to thank Councillor Byrne for stepping up into the breach.
Thank you. Are there any speakers?
There are no hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Do you wish to say anything further, Councillor Lowe?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'm the seconder. Do you wish to say anything?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
All right. Those in favour, please show using the raise hands function.
That's 38 for Mr. Mayor. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's 39.
Okay, I think some people must be having problems with the raise hand. Well, will you please lower your hands? And those against, please show using the raise hands function.
There are none, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, in that case, I suppose I should ask, is there anyone who wants to abstain?
There are none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Claire. In that case, the motion is carried. The next item is to receive the report of the Head of Growth and Investments set out at item 7B of the agenda. The report concerns proposed amendments to the local plan key diagram and Rugby Borough Local Plan Rural Settlement Maps 2019. Councillor Mrs Simpson-Vince, will you move the report of the Head of Growth and Investment?
Mr. Mayor, I so move.
Thank you. Who will second the motion?
I will second the motion, Mr. Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Mr Simpson-Vince, would you like to present the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Right, this is sort of technical changes to the local plan. So part one of this is a typo where Churchover should read Church Lawford. The second part of this involves 2 rural settlement maps, and it's bringing them in line with the 2011 maps that were in the plan. The first one is in Clifton, an open space area between Hadfield Close and Robertson Close, and the second one is in Marton near the church on North Street. These are changes that have to come to full council. It cannot be subject to officer delegation, which is why we've got these tonight.
Thank you. Are there any speakers?
There are none, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Claire. Does the seconder wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
And Councillor Simpson-Vince, do you wish to say anything further?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
All right, thank you. We go to the vote then. With those in favour, please show using the raise hands function.
That's 39, Mr Mayor.
All right, thank you. Would you lower your hands, please? With those against, please show using the raised hands function.
There are none, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Claire. We're still one short, so I'll ask, is there anyone who wishes to abstain? Please show using the low raise hand function.
There are none, Mr Mayor. It appears that we've lost Councillor Kieran Brown again, so at the moment there are 39 members.
Okay, thank you for letting me know that. Could you tell me if he comes back again, please?
Yes, I will do, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. In that case, the motion is carried. We move on to item 8. This is notices of motion pursuant to Standing Order 11. Set out that item 8A of the agenda is one notice of motion. I consider it advisable and convenient to deal with this tonight at this meeting. Councillor Sanderson, will you please move the motion set out in item 8A of the agenda, notice of which has been given under Standing Order 11?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move the motion in mine and Councillor Douglas's name.
Thank you. Who will second the motion? Presumably Councillor Douglas then in that case.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will second the motion and I will reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
All right, thank you. In that case, I call on Councillor Sanderson to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The reason for this motion is that I think we recognise that there's clearly a crisis in social and affordable housing. We currently have to date, and it was up to the 10th of November, 1,218 households on the council waiting list and an under-delivery of social and affordable housing from major developers. This was very apparent in a recent planning meeting where members were incandescent about the reduction in the units that were provided by a developer. If we are heading towards a significant recession due to COVID-19 climate emergency, then we do need to develop new forms of tenure to offset what may be a slowdown in housing development. At the moment, we have a rigid housing planning policy that restricts development to owner-occupied, rented and shared ownership, with very little in between. the Rent Plus model and community-led land trusts help to fill that gap and ensure that we don't have a cliff edge of new social housing drying up as we move through the local plan. It was interesting to note that the late Tom Cudlip, our former Director of Housing and Environmental Health, invited the housing associations in to provide a mixture of tenure types within the Rugby housing market. I think we need to learn that lesson again as we move forward. The type of tenures that are offered are 5, 10, 15 and 20 years based on a 5-year assured short-hold tenancy with full repair rights for the property whilst it remains in its rented stage. Other councils have already adopted this policy, like Tamar, East of England, Sedgemoor, South Cambridgeshire and Tetlow. Again, I think it provides us with another housing option and certainly will help us move things along. We do have a number of small brownfield sites that would be suitable for community-led land trusts or social housing supported self-build schemes. But I think when we were looking at the housing needs SPD, it seemed to be too much weight towards the larger number of properties rather than the smaller number. But planning had advised me that they can make that a lot more open and transparent and a lot more flexible for those that want to look at self-build. So overall, I think this is the right way forward for the council. I look forward to seeing the Executive Director bring forward a report to this council and hope members will support it.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Are there any speakers? Yes, Councillor Lowe, I think you were first with your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to say very briefly that I would like to offer my thanks to Councillor Sanderson for bringing this motion forward tonight. I agree with his comments about the need for more affordable housing in the borough of Rugby, and I'm very heartened to hear an innovative solution proposed. My only additional comment beyond that would be to say that perhaps this is something that our trading company ought to be looking at. And should the motion pass, and I can assure you I will be voting for it myself, I will be encouraging the Executive Director to look at routing this through the trading company.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. I think Councillor Brader, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's always good to see sort of new ideas come forward, and I'm interested in sort of looking into the feasibility of this. My only concern is that it seems to be sort of building council houses explicitly in order to sell them off later down the line. And I think one of the problems that we face with our social housing stock is, one, as Councillor Sanderson said, there's a long waiting list for social housing, but also that under the sort of right to buy scheme, which is nationwide, is that we sort of lose that when people buy their council properties and it's very difficult to replace, partly because they're sold at a discount. So my concern would be that we would sort of build these and then lose them, and then you're almost back to square one in that it doesn't develop long-term social housing stock that's able to meet the needs of the people on the waiting list.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brader. Councillor Lowe, did you want to speak again? Your hand is still up.
My apologies, Mr. Mayor, that is an old hand. I will take it down.
Thank you. Couldn't tell by looking. Councillor Simpson-Vince.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as the person that called in that planning application that got the planning committee so incandescent a couple of meetings ago, completely agree. This is one of my huge frustrations, that in terms of affordable housing and social housing and site viability, we are sort of held hostage by the site viability stats given to us by the developers, and then suddenly affordable housing numbers seem to have to reduce. After that planning meeting, given the comments at that planning committee, I did actually write to the Secretary of State in my capacity as portfolio holder, pointing out the issues that the committee had with the whole site viability in terms of protecting affordable housing. So hopefully somewhere in Whitehall that has been noted, and it will add into all the other comments about all of this. And I'm quite happy to keep writing, because I think this is a really important issue for Rugby, and I'm more than happy to support this motion today.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. from my days on the planning committee, it was definitely a frustrating issue. Councillor Ian Picker, I think, is next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm going to say similar to what's been said by a lot of others. This is the right sort of motion that we should be bringing forward. With some of the developments that are taking place in Rugby, we need to make sure we're getting the affordable housing numbers that we need and that are in our local plans. So I'm grateful to Councillor Sanderson and Councillor Douglas for bringing this forward, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Picker. Councillor Catherine Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, like everybody else, I welcome this motion. As Chair of Planning, the Planning Committee well knows that we are extremely frustrated when developers find ways not to bring forward the affordable housing quotas that we were anticipating. And we have made this point quite strongly in our response to the white paper, and Councillor Sanderson was part of that working party and the responses that we put together. So I think this is a way forward, and like Councillor Brader, we built Saul Place in Hill Morton, but as he rightly says, that after a few years the right to buy means that we will lose those wonderful houses that we've got there from the council housing stock, and that is a great pity. So I shall be supporting this, and well done for bringing this motion to council.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. I think the last week I've got up here is Councillor Jim Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some serious reservations about the concept of actually selling off housing association homes. As far as I understand it, these homes anyway, under the Rent Plus scheme, will be forced sold at the end of 20 years, irrespective of whether the tenants are able to purchase or not. So I do have some reservations. I do support, however, what everyone else has said about the limited availability of council houses. I mean, it is a concern that I'm sure we're all in agreement with. But I think by opening up marketisation into what is currently protected housing stock, I think this is problematic. I think there are enough houses on the market in the private sector, which I do fully support as well, with competitive mortgages. What we actually need instead is a scheme where people can actually save for those homes and actually retain the public social housing models that we've got and build on those and build further council homes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask Councillor Douglas next before going back to Councillor Sanderson for his reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for all the speakers. It is great to see some consensus across the council and some positivity on housing and affordability. I think obviously there's two parts of the motion, and Councillor Sanderson's referred to the Rent Plus. I think the beauty of the community land trusts are they are a type of community-led housing. So in one sense, it's a not-for-profit organisation that is made up of community members. And in the examples from North Devon, where they've supported community land trusts, this has developed plans for 57 new homes for families in villages. And I know in Cornwall they've done 200 community land trust homes have been completed, and they've got another 150 in the pipeline. I think, build on the points Councillor Brader was saying, the trusts remain stewards when the homes are complete. So in a sense, there's an asset lock, which means the affordability is legally protected, so that future residents will also benefit. And I think another key point is the homes cannot be sold for inflated profits.
Have you frozen? Sorry, we lost you just for a second.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just saying the homes cannot be sold for inflated profits, and any extra money that a community land trust earns or raises must go back into the pot to be used for the community benefit. And I think finally, in many cases, the groups are developing sites that are unattractive, or unavailable to developers. So it should deliver, it could deliver new homes rather than substituting housing developments that are otherwise taking place. So there's great positivity for this. I think it's something we should look at, and I hope the council will do so. Thank you.
Can't see any other speakers, so Councillor Sanderson, do you wish to say anything further?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify that this is basically an alternative housing scheme. This does not stop the council from building council houses on whichever site it wishes to build them on, or if they're provided by a developer. This is another form of tenure. It widens the range of people who may qualify for this type of accommodation. I think we must be mindful that when we really did have certain problems like this back in the 1980s, without that range of tenure types, there would be many people in rugby who would never have gotten onto the housing ladder, let alone secured a long-term home.
Is that it? Thank you.
Yes.
Well, in that case, I shall now put the motion to the vote. Would those in favour please show using the raise hands function. Keep your hands up until I ask you to take them down, please.
That's 34 for the motion, Mr. Mayor.
34. Okay, thank you. Will you please lower your hands now? Still some hands up, I see. Okay. Those against, please show using the raised hands function.
That's 2 against, Mr. Mayor.
2. Okay. Will you lower your hands now, please? Sorry, Councillor Sivastava, your hand is up. Was that against or?
Mr. Mayor, could I suggest we take the vote for against the motion again, just in case Councillor Srivastava was planning to vote against?
Okay. I'll do as suggested then. Was those against, please show using the raise hands function.
That's still 2 against, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, would you please lower your hands? Will those who wish to abstain please show using the raise hands function.
There are none, Mr. Mayor.
So we had a total of 36 votes there.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Well, in that case, the motion is carried. Move on to item 9, correspondence. Is there any correspondence, Executive Director?
Mr. Mayor, there's no correspondence.
Thank you. Move on to item 10, Common Seal. I move that the Common Seal be affixed to the various orders, deed and documents referred to in item 6 of the agenda paper. Who will second the motion?
I will, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Those in favour, please show using the raise hands function and keep your hands up until I ask you to take them down. Thank you.
That's 35. 36, Mr. Mayor.
36. Or would you all lower your hands, please? Still got some hands up, I see. All right, it's clear. Those against, please show using the raise hands function.
There are none, Mr. Mayor.
We're still a few short. In that case, those who wish to abstain, please show using the raise hand function.
There are none, Mr. Mayor.
Seem to be losing people. Okay, in that case, the motion is carried. We'll move on to item 11, motion to exclude the public under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972. Under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of information defined in paragraph 2, 3 and 4 of Schedule 12A of the Act. I so move. Who will second the motion?
I will, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Those in favour, please show using the raise hand function.
That's 35, Mr. Mayor. 36, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Would you please lower your hands? Those against, please show using the raise hands function.
You still got your hand up, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry, apologies.
There are none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we're still 4 short. All right. In that case, those who wish to abstain, please show using the raise hand function.
There are none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. In that case, the motion is carried. If there seem to be people having trouble with the raised hands function, there's some important votes coming up. So if you are having trouble, please let IT know. That concludes the public part of the meeting. IT support, would you please stop the live streaming and confirm when you have done so? Thank you.